Hi, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hi, everyone. Hello, everyone. If you don't have this, please can you get one so that you can hear me very well? We all need the headset so that you can hear me. Okay, we are ready to go. Hello, everyone. My name is Olufunke Kofi, and I work for the International Water Management Institute, one of the co-convening organizations. So you're welcome to the dialogue on strengthening water and food systems resilience in national climate commitments. This is a dialogue with countries and stakeholders. I encourage you to have your headset on so that you can hear me very well. We're going to have a very good conversation in the next 1.5 hours. And we're going to have two rounds of panel discussion. But before we go into all that, I would like to invite Shala to come up to give us the few treats to this event today. Shala, please.
Is this working? It's working? Okay, great. All right. Hi, everyone. So my name is Sheila Barefoot. I wear a lot of hats. A couple of them that are relevant for this particular panel is I'm an environmental health and justice program manager at Poetry for Planet and a policy organizer at a Wisdom Keepers delegation. My educational background is actually in environmental health science. However, I do like to dabble in creative fields as a way to help better communicate issues regarding climate change, industrial agriculture, a lot of heavy topics that while we need the facts, and I'll spew those in a little bit, just giving people information does not create a tangible change. You end up needing to touch people emotionally for that. So as part of science communication, I do poetry. And I'm very humbled and grateful to have been asked to give a opening poem to set some of the intentions for this panel and also to help remind all of us of some of the hidden dirty truths regarding our current food and water system, both globally and then from my context in the US. Okay, so without further ado, I poured myself a tall, cool glass of toxics, garnished with cucumber and microplastics. Felt pesticides slide down my throat, organophosphates for flavor, tastes like home. Used it to wash down the lies I'm expected to swallow because so many at the top choose to spit out uncomfortable truths into the water which they see fit for us to drink. I took a walk on soil held hostage, her microbiome raided, whatever wasn't profitable removed, a ransom for her survival deemed a bad investment. It looks like her microscopic relatives have long been murdered or missing too. Stores filled with hundreds of brands of repackaged petroleum, and they call that consumer choice. And yet we've been given no other option but to eat the fruits of a raped womb, soft earth plowed violently with toxic seeds she never wanted, that we never wanted, the crops a sick bastardization produced by forced labor violations. Take a bite. Juice drips down an invisible hand. That lingering aftertaste? It's pain.
Thank you very much, Sheila. That speaks a lot, a lot. It speaks volume to the issues around water and food and the discussions that we want to have here today. It's, it's pathetic, it's revealing, but I think the conversations we're going to have will actually help us to advance towards how do we respond to issues like that. Thank you very much. Um, as some of you may know, this is actually first one of a series of events and dialogue that will happen in the context of the water resilient food system that we're going to be having. I would like to invite the FAO Emergency and Rehabilitation Officer, CV Kandoti, to come forward to give us an opening remark, setting the agenda for this session. CV. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. I'm Sylvie Wabs. I'm a small-scale farmer with the privilege of working at FAO. I'm trying to walk the talk, and I live in the north of Rome. Sorry, didn't adjust the microphone. That's better. Live in the north of Rome, where we are facing quite a lot of water scarcity, drought. And we're producing the food for my own family. I like to do that as a free time. And for the quality of the food is becoming challenging. So here I would like to speak to you about introducing this event, the very strong linkages that all of us probably know intuitively, and that was nicely demonstrated by your amazing poem. The links between food, water, climate. It's all related. Climate actions are water actions, are food actions, with the suite of risks, shocks and stresses, which are most of the time related to too much water, too little water, of course temperature also, but a lot about the climate events that we're facing, including sea level rise, is too much, too little water. It has huge impacts across system, water being a basic human need. Food is one also. And you probably know that agriculture, the food that we consume is using more than 70% of fresh water. And it's expected to grow the demand for fresh water of at least 24% by 2050. And if you look at the latest report, came out this year and recently, it's very nice. It has some very nice digital slides and easy to grab and follow about the Commission on the Economics of Water. It talks about water crisis. So we're not only in a situation of a climate crisis, we really have to come to terms together with the climate crisis, the water crisis, the food crisis. Today we have more than 282 million people that are facing severe food insecurity. That means they go forward with with not yet one meal per day. And most of these people live in areas that are facing water scarcity, but also extreme events, drought and floods, for example. They also face land degradation. So the water crisis, the food crisis, the climate crisis is also combined with the nature crisis, biodiversity loss. And we have the 3 COPs this year. And that's, if we unite this crisis, polycrisis word together, that all, we have all in the face. We have the biodiversity, the climate, the water, the health, the land degradation, and a resulting food crisis. So it becomes a very sad story. That's the reality. That's the survival in which we are, and for which we are all working in a fragmented way. We're having water solution, we're having food solution, we have climate actions. Do they talk to one another? Do we share data? Do we share knowledge? Do we share good practices? Are we talking about similar type of finance, humanitarian development, climate? These nexus of challenges, but also solutions, are very, very important. And this is where, from the FAO, but together with many partners we work with, including the Climate Resilient Food System Alliance that was launched at the UN Food System Summit, but also the Water Resilience Partnership that was also formed as a result of the UAE COP28. We are all trying to work together, understanding the challenges, but also the solutions, so that we can work together on these solutions. So they work for the people, for the planet. Oh, my microphone, sorry. Work all together in moving ahead. And I just would like to re-emphasize that we are still, even in FAO, working on the water specificity or the food insecurity specificity or climate specificities. And we're more and more moving with this convergence of actions, putting people at the center and trying to enable them in their resilience capacities, in their capacities to manage multiple risks and multiple impacts from all these crises colliding together. So that's the quick introduction that I would like to share before listening to the other experts, and saying that we're moving well, at least especially we will hear from the non-state actor work, forging these solutions together, mobilizing investment together, especially on the prevention, anticipation, and adaptation side of the work. Thank you, Mrs. Moderator.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Sylvia. She has drawn our attention to the main reason why we are here, and she has talked about the water we eat when we eat food. And we often forget that when we eat food, we're actually eating water. And the interconnectedness with climate and every aspect of other sectors. She touched on the fragmented actions and the need for convergence. Now that is why we're having this dialogue today. And this dialogue is structured into two parts. The first part is by non-state actors, and it's going to be for just about 30 minutes. So I'm going to call the distinguished speakers that we have here to join Sheila here. So we have Marcia Toledo, the Adaptation and Resilience Director, High-Level Champions Team, Race to Resilience. You can talk a little bit about what you do later. David Gills, Youth Policy Specialist, World Food Forum. Thank you, David. And Natalia Machabo, Global Business Developer and Public Affairs. Please join. Oh, thank you. Okay, you have one. Okay. Oh. We are fortunate here. In other session, I had only one. Here we have three. Oh, we have one for everyone. That's great. Resilience Hub. Thank you. Great. So in this session of the discussion, we're just going to focus on challenges. The challenges around water and agricultural production. From their perspectives, they are coming from different sectors. So we would like them to speak to that briefly, and maybe a little bit touch on some of the actions that are emerging towards solutions, but more on the challenges that they see. So each of you represents different constituencies when it comes to water, food, and climate issues. And then you are from the youth organization, indigenous people group, non-state actors, and of course the agro-tech industry. So we have, great. We have a combination of all. So from your perspective, and when you think about food and water security and their integration in the context of climate change, what are the main challenges that you see from your perspective? Who wants to go first? Shall we start with you? Yeah.
All right.
Charlie.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Natalia Machado, Global Business Developer and Public Affairs for Solinftec. And we're going to start with A of agriculture, right? And A of AI, which is what Solinftec does all together. So since 2007, we have been putting technology in agriculture. And starting from the challenges and thinking about the agricultural sector back then and how it is transforming today, I don't think we're going to be able to do things the way we have been doing for the past 100 years. So the trends that we see now are smarter and smaller machines, right? Considering the weight of the machines that we have today in the field, the amount of fuel consumption they have, and the practices that are usual in traditional agriculture. I'm thankful for those. They brought us here to where we are today. But it's time to evolve. So sharing some technologies that are now able of helping with those challenges in the agricultural sector are solutions with AI, innovative technologies altogether. So back home, Brazil, Solimtech has been developing an agricultural robot that does other than collecting data on a plant-by-plant level, so we are able to have eyes in the field. It can also do targeted application of herbicides, considering that we can reduce up to 90% the use of those herbicides in the field. By reducing herbicides in the field, the plants, they become more robust, stronger, producing more plant by plant. So that means up to 10 to 15% productivity more in the fields. We are not stressing the plant the way it is stressed when it receives products twice. Usually it's twice in a season. So they have a broadcast application and the plants receive that product. With the targeted application, we have the robot running in the field 2 kilometers per hour, being able to do spot and targeted application only in the weeds. Other than that, in the same product, we are able to attract and eliminate the bad insects, not the good ones that help us controlling the field, with no insecticide at all. So Solix the Hunter, which is what we call it, attracts and eliminates adult insects with no application of insecticide. We use a bug zapper in the middle of the robot and UV light waves to do the attraction. So I would say that the challenges are big. I mean, now we are more and more as an agricultural sector required for reducing the use of defensive and chemicals in the field, which is the future. They brought us here, but it's the future. And technology is up for the task. I mean, there are many other companies as well up for the task. And, well, the challenge is, by 2050, we have 2 billion more people to feed in the world. This is the agricultural sector challenge. So the only way of doing that is with the technology. Deforestation was never part of the equation. We have to produce more food in the same amount of arable land. And, well, the sector is up for the task, thankfully.
Thank you very much. Please, can you indicate where in the part of the world are your technologies being used? Just in simple.
Sure. Yeah. Well, Solimtech is a Brazilian agri-tech. We were founded in Brazil, but we also have operations in the Americas. And by Americas, I mean Canada, United States, Latin America. So we have offices in Colombia, but operations in Guatemala. So many countries with operations and, well, mostly the Americas. We have expansion plans. Of course, I've been having so many great conversations here that I'm going back home with a lot of plans that may come up for the next 5 years.
Okay, thank you very much. So basically, her organization, that is Solimtech, is responding to the challenge of lack of appropriate technology and data information to be able to respond to the kind of production that is required to meet global food demand. And you focus on the Latin America and the Americas. Okay, so thank you. Now let's go to David. From your youth perspective, as a youth policy specialist, what's your perspective? What's your opinion? What do you think? What are the challenges, particularly with the youth being engaged into this, or whatever you think? Please, over to you.
Thank you so much. I hope you can hear me okay.
Yes.
Good. Okay, so hello everyone. My name is David Giles. I'm originally from Ireland and have a background in organic agriculture. And as was mentioned, I currently work for FAO in Rome, where I work on youth policy. And I think my interest in integrating youth voices into the likes of NDCs and into the multilateral space first comes from the national level, where I founded what's called the National Youth Food Forum, which aims to take a systems approach at engaging young people from the full range, from nutritionists to farmers to people who work in marketing to people who work in production, and give them a voice in national agri-food policy. And what I do at the World Food Forum in Rome is very, very similar. So we're aiming to create an independent youth-led voice that can then feed into the many spaces where agri-food decision-making takes place, including at the likes of here in COP. So I'm intimately aware of how young people are seeking to have a voice in these spaces and some of the challenges that they face. I think the first is for them seeing the relevance of spaces like these to them. I see in Ireland that we have a very small country relative to many of the countries here, but there's a massive information divide in terms of how aware people are of where their food comes from and the impact of different methods of production or different methods of technology to make our food production more sustainable. So I think we need to really work both through formal mechanisms like education, but also informal mechanisms like we had our poet here today to try and make people care and connect with the food system. Beyond recognizing the relevance, I think young people need to feel that they have legitimacy in this space. And that's both for themselves and for their legitimacy to be recognized by those who have relatively more power. And I think we really need to recognize the value of technical expertise and 20 years of experience and a PhD and all of these things, but also recognize the value of the young person who knows intimately the water scarcity issues that they are facing or the food scarcity issues that they are facing, and recognize that perspective is as valuable and we need to probably work much harder to make sure that voice is here and is shared in the spaces that it matters. Beyond that, we need to make sure that we're supporting young people to effectively deliver their demands. So I have a background in activism as well, and one thing that I really take from the activism world is the passion, but I think we need to make sure that the passion is also delivered in a way that makes sense to the negotiators. So if we're in a youth space and the young people really want to see a fossil fuel phase out, we need to support them to think in terms of, okay, what are the negotiations, how are they working, and how can you map your demands in the language and in the technical way that they will be taken seriously in this space. And that requires support from those with more expertise, really meeting the young people where they're at, and then elevating those voices while maintaining the authenticity of the voice itself. And then finally, it's looking at the space that we give young people. Are they outside of the room? Are we consulting with them beforehand and then perhaps forgetting about what the thoughts were? Or are we meeting them at every step of the process and in the follow-up? And this is at every level, from the local to the national to the global. And as I was saying, for agri-food systems, everyone engages, whether they're aware of it or not, with aspects of the agri-food system, both from the food and the water side. And it's about recognizing that and keeping that sacred voice and bringing it into the space.
Thank you very much. That's very helpful. And I'm sure that in the next panel, we're going to look into more concrete actions that are necessary. But basically, I think the challenge you're responding to that is about positioning youth, helping them to find their space, because they often get lost. That's what's going on. Where do I really belong to this sector? And what is my position? How can I be relevant? So that's sense of irrelevance and not fitting into it is what they're trying to address. Thank you very much. Let me quickly move on to Marcia. From your perspective, what do you see as the challenges? Yeah, thank you.
Can I? Yes, very good. Thank you very much. It's definitely a pleasure to be here today. Briefly, I will explain who are the UN High-Level Climate Champions before I reflect on the work that we are doing and the opportunities and the challenges we identify. The UN High-Level Climate Champions are appointed by the COP presidencies every year for 2 years, so they are rotating. Right now we have the COP28 presidency that is outgoing and the incoming presidency COP29. And both respective high-level champions are the one leading the Marrakesh Partnership of the Global Climate Action of the UNFCCC, which has different thematic areas of work. One of them deals with land use and the other on water, very relevant to this topic today. And the high-level champions have a lean team supporting them to ensure consistency across the time. And I am director for adaptation and resilience of that team. What we have in the champions team in support of the mandate of the UN high-level champions is bridging the work of the non-state actors with the government work in regards of the UNFCCC process. We all know this is a government-led space for decision-making, and climate action is happening across the board, across the levels of let's say, decision in regards of subnational, local, but also including multi-different stakeholders, businesses, financiers, different groups, indigenous, gender, youth, local communities, civil society, science, everyone. So what the champions do is collect, aggregate, and better foster, elevate the voices, the success stories, the evidence, but as well aims to make more clear where are the challenges and the opportunities for improving those bigger processes of decision making. We have a very unique time during this and next COP in regards of the finance negotiation, in regards of the global goal on adaptation. So the opportunities that we see is in regards of adaptation and resilience, make it more clear that those solutions already exist to advance integrated approaches on water management, reduce challenges for addressing issues on, let's say, food security, but also water insecurity. And at the cross-cutting is to avoid that silo view, really bringing an understanding that those solutions already exist, are already being implemented, bottom up and across the board. And of course, they respond to specific conditions so that adaptation is contextually advanced, but that we can understand that the more that we can integrate, we can also foster benefits for mitigation and for adaptation. The challenges that we have seen with adaptation and the solutions and the engagement with non-state actors that we have is that it seems to be an afterthought. First is very clear, the mitigation commitments, and adaptation comes more like a band-aid. So important to bring them together and to maximize the benefit for both objectives. So that is very clear on the information, the data, the processes that we are working with the many different initiatives and agendas of action. Additional to that is the challenge of how these decisions are impacting local communities and where are their role for increasing resilience, where are the opportunities to actually engage, participate, or have more conditions that can help elevate the opportunities as well across the entire value chain for, again, water or food systems. And where we have focus is we, in 2021, launched the Race to Resilience campaign. At that time, very much to respond to the context that we have adaptation and resilience very piecemeal and very difficult to, let's say, aggregate and understand that while we respect, and it has to be locally based, it is as well an opportunity to advance a global process to really enhance resilience. We must bring this to a global prioritization, otherwise it continues to be diluted. And the Race to Resilience put people at the center of climate action. And it was a role of the champions to actually say, with all of what we have to advance on climate action, we cannot forget where is the most important impact of these actions, which is people. And the second effort was to aggregate as well the system transformation opportunities through the Sharm el-Sheikh adaptation agenda that was brought a year later in 2022. This was before the GGA became more clear in regards of the opportunities thematics to advance thematic global targets. And exactly that's the rationale. We make it more tangible. We bring the solutions more integrated. Then we can think about multiple solutions that can together enhance the resilience of the system. And increasing the resilience of the system is not, again, isolated. Water is cross-cutting to human settlement, to food systems, to infrastructure, and health. we cannot just think about one solution, one system, or mitigation or adaptation. And it's in that complexity that we have to work together to identify how could we make also the decision, the finance flows, and the opportunities more feasible to actually be landing. We know and we reach a point where we are extremely aligned that we need to finance adaptation at local level. But if we continue to make it so diluted, then it becomes harder to make it tangible for specific, most vulnerable actors to actually have access to that. And there are several examples of those innovations and those blended mechanisms that are already generating benefits to the community, to nature, to climate. And it's about how we work together to accelerate the pace and scale of them. And for that, maybe to finalize, the challenge, of course, that is an opportunity as well, is how do we track the progress? And we are in a very unique time to foster that, let's say, iterative process of define the right indicators, refine the right global goal and adaptation framework that can help us track progress. First, define the north thematically, but also how do we track progress. But in that, we should not lose the sight that at the end of the day, we might also explore a combination of maybe quantitative approaches, indicators that can be easily to be tracked, easily between quotes, but as well enabling conditions. Understanding how to read the signals of change and understand that there might be other opportunities that are critical as well to foster, like partnership, finance, policy, access to risk data, or communication, empowerment, and resilient attributes, gender, locally led adaptation principles in cooperation. And that combination of maybe hardcore ways of tracking progress versus complementing with signals of change could help us recognize that we continue moving forward what in that iteration we learn and enhance.
Okay. I see that you are very full of these ideas and very, 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 very interesting trying to link the state and the non-state actors and all the challenges that are associated with that. Thank you very much. We come back to David and Natalia to give me maybe just one statement about what the challenge that they are facing in delivering what they are doing and what could be the action. Just one statement on that. I will come back, but not now. Before then, let me go to Sheila. I have a specific question for you because of the group you represent. So, how do the challenges that are faced by vulnerable communities, you've heard about industry, youth, high-level champions and all that, but the vulnerable communities, such as the indigenous people and smallholder farmers, how do their challenges differ from those of larger agricultural producers in terms of water and food security? If you could just do that briefly, I'll be happy. Thank you.
Briefly, someone better get a timer because y'all gave me a microphone and I will yap.
Yes, I'm timing you. You have 2 minutes to respond to that.
Oh, geez. Okay, so the way it differs is food insecurity is a product of a destruction of indigenous food sovereignty as part of the settler colonial project. The one thing to remember is all of our challenges specifically go back to a destruction of traditional ecological knowledge. We were able to sustain ourselves for time immemorial until colonization, globally. This is not just, I speak from a U.S. perspective. I'm from a Native American tribe. I'm Chiricahua Apache. We're located in the U.S., well, what's now called the U.S., but this is something that is repeated everywhere. Our current industrial agricultural system does not work, and it is continuing to fuel climate change, and it is actually continuing to fuel the fossil fuel industry. 99% of synthetic chemicals, which includes pesticides, are created from fossil fuel feedstocks, specifically from their hydrocarbon feedstocks. We've used 1 billion pounds, or approximately 455 million kilograms of pesticide in the US. That's a lot of pesticide, and multiply that by a factor of 30 to 40, and that's how many pounds and kilograms of CO2 or CO2 equivalent that has been emitted because of that. One of the most popular herbicides, glyphosate, Roundup Ready, it's used in corn everywhere globally, and it's a known endocrine disruptor. Produces, for each kilogram to produce glyphosate, it produces 31.2 kilograms of CO2 equivalent. Our current industrial agricultural system, which is pervasive because of the intentional destruction of traditional ecological knowledge for profit, is killing us. We cannot have climate justice without transitioning away from our current industrial agricultural system. And this is by design. Who ends up picking the crops? Where are these chemical plants located? It's in vulnerable communities. Just to quickly bring on a little bit more of a global perspective, and because in a couple weeks it will be the 40-year anniversary of the Bhopal disaster. The Bhopal disaster that many of you may have heard of was an incident in 1984 when over 500,000 people in Bhopal, India were exposed to methyl isocyanate, a pesticide gas that was being produced there. This still has impacts in terms of horrific birth defects, cancer rates, deaths immediately. And this was done in vulnerable communities to produce pesticides that were going to be used to feed the quote-unquote developed world. This is done intentionally. So I just figured I would be a bit remiss to not mention that since the anniversary is coming up so soon. And it's sad that in the last 40 years, it doesn't seem like there's been that much difference.
Thank you very much. Wow. The fact that you said it's intentional, the intentionality of disruption of the indigenous knowledge is striking. But I think you have a point there. And drawing our attention to the high consumption of pesticide and all those chemicals in the name of agricultural revolution and all that. Anyway, thank you very much. So I want to give opportunity to David and Natalia to just say one or two statements leading to the next panel, looking at what you're doing already and the challenges that you are facing in that space, in the sector, in the linkage between water, food, and other. What do you think should be the next action that will meet those challenges? Don't go too back to the challenges, but just to provoke us in terms of action. David?
Yeah, thank you so much.
1 minute.
1 minute, okay. So maybe to reflect on something that Marcia said about if we're to work together in the complexities of this nexus approach and moving beyond the silos, I think if we are to really be inclusive and to be sustainable, we have to be inclusive. And that's, I think, the building block. We have to think about who is less familiar with navigating these complexities. And for the vast case, it's the non-state actors, whether they're the vulnerable communities or whether they're youth or whether they're those who don't have the privilege to generally occupy these spaces. And it is too late when we are already in the space and we are negotiating to then think about how do we bring all of these people in. So we have to look forward, and for the next panel and going forward, for those who are have more access to the negotiations, it's about building a system going forward in a way that structures youth engagement in indigenous communities and vulnerable communities long before we make it to Baku or to any of these other conferences. So I think that would be my call to action for the next panel.
Okay, thank you very much. Natalia?
For the private sector, I mean, we're responsible for coming up with new solutions, right? New technologies. So we are able to start this new wave of agriculture considering everything we've heard here. I mean, something has to be done. We can't continue like this. And then I would say that if it's our role to come up with the new solutions, the next step comes from the governments and the institutions. So the population is able of adopting those solutions, right? And with that, I am talking about policies that go alongside with such technologies. I'm talking about finance institutions helping not only the private sector to come up with this kind of solutions, but also helping the farmers or the population to adopt these kind of solutions. We're working very hard with the Brazilian Development Bank. I have Brazilians here, so BNDES. They help a lot the farmers to adopt these kind of technologies. And what I'm saying is, the next discussion coming up will bring that up a lot. What the government and the associations or the finance institutions are doing to foster this kind of solutions, so we are able to actually change how things have been done until now.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. So, in summary, for this panel, we have been able to identify some of the challenges that relate to the connection between water and food and building resilience and all that. We first heard about the importance of water in the food that we eat normally, and the connection, and the lack of data, the lack of appropriate technology, the lack of inclusiveness of youth, the disconnect between the state and non-state actors, and the intentional disruption of indigenous knowledge. All these are some of the challenges that also they are trying to address through their interventions. So I want us to thank them very well for sharing these thoughts with us before we move on to the next session. Thank you very much. Let's clap for them, please. You can have your seat. And then we will now move on to moving to action, moving towards action, building on the feedback we've gotten from them in terms of concrete challenges and some steps that they're already taking towards action. So we're privileged to have other people to talk to us about some concrete ways to really move towards action. So I'm going to call the speakers to come forward. Bruno Brasil, who is the director and head of the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock delegation in Brazil. Debbie Palmer, the Director for Energy, Climate and Environment, the UK. Welcome, Debbie. Maha Kamil, who is the Principal Secretary, Minister of Environment and Forestry from Lesotho. And then, one moment, there's a change of name here. Mohammed Idris, who is a member of the National Disaster Management Authority from Pakistan. Thank you very much. So we will spend the next 25 minutes thereabout to address this aspect of moving towards action. So thanks a lot. So thank you for joining us. So the speakers in the previous panel, they shared some key messages. Okay, let me wait for. Please, can you hear me now? Can you? Great. Yeah, so in the last panel, the speakers, they shared some key messages that to address what they identified as challenges. They talked a lot about the challenges and some of the things that we can do to start addressing the challenges for food and water security and their integration in the context of climate change. Now, I want to ask you, what are your reactions to what you have heard and from your experience? Any one of you? I will ask Palmer to start because I understand she has to go for another session. So would you like to start?
Thank you so much, Olafunke. It's very kind of you, and it's lovely to be in the Resilience Hub this afternoon and with you all. So I thought we had a lot of great stimulation and some provocation from the previous panel, and I'm really excited about the discussion because I felt like we're getting to the heart of some of these issues. David talked about the importance of getting the right voices in the room and not doing that at the last minute, but actually building that into the process. And I really want to agree with that, and also thank today's organisers for bringing together this kind of hybrid conversation, which I think is really healthy and helpful, focusing on inclusion, focusing on the importance of local communities and Indigenous peoples. So I thought that was really helpful. I thought, Marcia, you talked about the interdependencies of water and food and energy and how critical that is. I really endorse that. We've got to look broadly and holistically at these systems within the context of a water, energy, food, environment nexus. And the pretext for many of the speakers I agree with, we're sleepwalking into an unprecedented water crisis. And it's not something we're talking about enough globally. And at the heart of this, for me, is an understanding that there's a double materiality of these systems. So food and energy security depends on water, on a reliable quantity and quality of fresh water, but at the same time, those systems are over-exploiting, and we're finding that we've got abstraction and pollution of the water systems on which they actually rely, right? So we've got a contradiction right at the heart of these systems, and these systems are complex, and the politics around them and the financing around them is complex, but we're going to have to address these challenges together if we're going to get to this sort of cross-cutting solution that Marcia was talking about. I think thirdly for me, what's clear is, and we will all agree, more financing is needed, but Sheila gave us a fantastic provocation about the systems that are driving current behaviors. And on that, so we know that there are billions of dollars spent every year on food and water subsidies, despite very strong evidence that's clear that existing policies often lead to quite perverse incentives that harm the environment and that undermine food and water security, as well as, frankly, growth and livelihoods for local people. So there's something in there about, on the one hand, I know it's natural that we all reach for kind of new tools and new solutions, but I would urge that we also get into the very, very difficult conversation about repurposing existing tools and looking very hard at subsidy reform and some of those really, really difficult topics. And so for me, I just want to say two final things. First of all, we're doing a set of work in the UK government with the World Bank looking at something called Just Rural Transitions, which is about getting into those very difficult conversations in terms of what policy reform is needed on subsidies, how do we support countries get to the place they want to get to on sustainable agriculture in a way that is constructive and helpful and sort of reinforcing. But finally, and coming to Natalia's point about ensuring we don't just have the tech, but also the policies and the finance, we're also working on something called Just Transitions for Water Security, which is about taking existing tools and really bringing them together with financing and accountability mechanisms. So there's a water tracker that's designed to support countries embed water, food systems and energies into integrated plans and sort of bring all that together through planning processes. There's a Resilient Water Accelerator, and this is where we're trying to help transform market conditions to bring in more investment from the private sector, including for nature-based solutions. And then finally, a Fair Water Footprint Partnership, bringing together the countries, the businesses and the organizations to really think about water stewardship and make water stewardship far more normal in the business environment. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for being able to participate today, and I'm so sorry to have to leave early, but thank you.
Thank you very much, and it's important that you were able to mention particularly those tools that you are supporting, that are very important tools that are also very relevant in different contexts. We are privileged, the International Water Management Institute and other partners, AGWA, we are privileged to be part of that water tracker, for example, which is really effective. And at the African Water Week, by the way, when that was launched, there was a session on that, and many countries were very interested in. So you are doing a very great job with that one. So thanks, and we are privileged on behalf of the partners. Yeah, so, and then you talk about the nature-based solutions and the water stewardship and resilience water accelerator, which are all very important tools, financing tools to actually get us going. So thank you very much, and we're happy that we're able to stay on for this. Yeah, so I'll now move on to Bruno, specifically for Brazil. Okay, so Bruno, as we look ahead to COP30, and I saw your wonderful platform, pavilion, where it says, see you at COP30. I'm already dreaming about coming to Brazil. What are the critical next steps that parties should take to ensure that the integration of water and food systems is prioritized in their climate commitments?
Thanks for the question, Ms. Coffey. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm grateful for the session co-host to bring this subject of water and food security to this high-level panel. It's a pleasure to be with you today. Before addressing that question specifically, I would like to make a brief comment about something that Debbie has mentioned in Marcia in a previous panel, because as Marcia was describing that we came during the negotiations to the Sharm el-Sheikh working group on food security and now the GGA. And I was just chatting with my colleague from our delegation, from the Brazilian delegation that's following the negotiations of the GGA, and I know we are going to bring the subject of indicators and metrics. And it just, she just mentioned that we have over 6,000 proposed indicators for that, so that's just really mind-blowing. And, but that does not surprise me, because what I was really wanting to start talking here is because to start addressing issues such as adaptation, food security, and water security, that brings us all the food systems and agricultural production systems to the spotlight. And those food systems, they can assume extremely diverse and unequal forms around the globe. We have to bear that in mind, from pastoralists in Africa to large industrial feedlots in North America, from food scarcity in the global south to food waste in the developed countries. So we would imagine to reach 6,000 indicators or more. It's really a complex landscape to work on that. But to give just my opinion on that, we should keep that more simpler, a simpler perspective, and focus on the effects of water scarcity or climate change on food security. That aligns well with Article 2 from the Convention. And also we can address how food losses and food production losses are increasing due to the effects of climate change, and can keep track if we are really decreasing the risk of those losses and disasters to occur through time. So that would be something that is well aligned with just transitions and climate justice, in my opinion, because I have seen some of those indicators regarding water footprints of agricultural products, for example, and that's directly proportional to technology and finance that we input in the production system. And if you go that way, you're probably doing the opposite. You're favoring more technified and developed systems and not those that are most vulnerable to food insecurity. And now, to address the question, really, I believe the key for the next steps that the parties should take to ensure the integration of water and food systems in their climate commitments, the key here are the NAPs, the National Adaptation Plans. We have a chance now to update them and build adaptation plans that can set the basis for water-resilient food systems and ensure food security. Food systems need to increase their adaptive capacity to ensure food security in different climate scenarios that we already experience there. Now we have to develop new adapted crop varieties, also to promote soil health, water storage, and sustainable irrigation, and thereby increasing the resilience of agriculture. Even in Brazil, which is commonly recognized as a country that would have a lower risk of natural disasters, this perspective is changing rapidly, actually, in Brazil. In recent years, we had the predominance of the phenomenon La Niña, and that led to severe droughts in the southern parts of Brazil. And now, this year, we experience a predominance of the El Niño that leads to floods in southern Brazil, in the state of Rio Grande do Sul. It was the major flood that we ever had in history in that part of the country, and also a severe drought in the Amazon. So those challenges that are being accelerated by climate change, they should be addressed in our national adaptation plans. And Brazil is building a comprehensive approach to foster the adoption of sustainable practice in agriculture while investing in water infrastructure and in sustainable irrigation. Just to give another example, Brazil has recently developed a platform that's called Adapta Brasil, and this platform plays a key role in providing information about our present and future climatic risks. We are also improving the resolution and accuracy of our climatic risk zoning system in order to reduce crop losses. So just to summarize here and to give a final message regarding this question, we should integrate all those types of measures in our specific adaptation policies during our process of updating our NAPs now, and also include specific sectorial strategies for agriculture, food security, and water security. That would be my contribution.
Thank you very much, Bruno. I hope that in the context of Adapt Brazil and other initiatives that Brazil has towards COP30, we will be able to have additional dialogue related to what we are discussing today, so that by the time we meet in Brazil, we will have more evidences of having been able to do this. So we are counting on Brazil to support us in facilitating such dialogue as we go on. So thank you very much for your intervention. I would like to come to Africa, to my sister from Lesotho. I want to start with the aspect of metrics, indicators, and financing tools. So what kind of metrics, indicators, and financing tools should be established to assess progress in integrating food and water systems within national climate strategies? And how can we ensure accountability? I'm very intentional in passing that question to you. In our context, Africa, we have heard from Brazil and we will come to Pakistan. But from African perspective, what kind of metrics, indicators, and financing tools should be established to assess progress? And how can we ensure accountability? Thank you very much. And just for your information, she's coming from Lesotho, where she's responsible as the Principal Secretary at the Ministry of Environment and Forestry for the nation. And she always represents her country at international organizations such as this. Sorry, I didn't give much details about the other people because I was rushing, but now I realize I have saved some time. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Madam Moderator. I want to first pass my gratitude to have been invited to this panel to deliberate on the food, water, energy nexus, which I think is the basis and the most important issue of today. While I am going to answer your question, I first want to put forth so that people understand where I come from. I like what Bruno said, because he said we do not have to generalize. We have to categorize the regions, the countries. All the behaviors must be categorized and be treated accordingly. In that, I want to say I come from a very small country, which is landlocked within the only country being a neighbor, which is South Africa. Mostly people would refer us as South Africans, but we are not. We come from the mountain kingdom of Lesotho. It is a small country. 59% of the country is mountainous. that says we are a grassland country. But we have the highest altitude. That says our mountains are very high and we have very rich sources of water. We may be a water hub for Africa if things went well from history. But with the recent current situations where climate change has become an elephant in the house, we see a lot of differentiated occurrences. We almost suffer like Brazil. We experience El Nino, we experience La Nino. We no longer know which season is right for us. We no longer know what current challenges we may face at any given season. So we are a mixed season country currently. We also, because of those changes, we sort of have a lot of rains which affect our agriculture a lot. We have prolonged droughts, which of course will let us set in for agriculture late in the season. That says we do not have food that mature to quality. We sometimes start early. When we start early, we be beaten by early frost. If we start late, also, they set in before the food can mature. That says we are highly vulnerable at the time. I just want to put forward again that we are a subsistence country. We are not commercial. That says a lot of times we suffer as individuals. That says a lot must be done to help us with the effects of climate change. There is so much of the indicators which of course will be very difficult for us to come up with the matrices for monitoring, for tracing, and for tracking, like the private sector was laying ahead. We are far from that because we have high loss of soil due to climate change. I said we are high geographically, and then we are beaten by degradation, severe. This degradation is being noticed in the wetlands, in the mountains, in the rangelands. Everything is wiping off. In that, when you come to the water, food, energy nexus, you will notice that indicatively our nutrient enrichment from the water does no longer give us the quality that we are supposed to have, which of course we need both technologically, we need capacity building, we need financial resources to at least be able to monitor and track the lapses that we see in these areas. We now see upcoming competition of terrestrial plants which were not adaptive to those areas. That says the first line plants have been degraded. Second line of the same plants also have been degraded. That is why we are now overcrowded by shrubs all over. you see rills and gullies. In that, I'm still coining around so that you understand how much we need support, resource and technological and financial for us to be capacitated to get to the notch where we can say we can be able to provide the matrices, we can be able to provide the data that will be helpful for us to be assisted. Is that mostly we will be using observation. And observation is not scientific, but it is one of the methods that we use. You see invasion of the ice rats and the mold rats in the wetlands. That says the water discharge has been depleted. Once you see habitats, living habitats like rats living in the wetlands, it says the wetlands are depleted. That says we no longer have that water discharge that is supposed to be there for us to access the water and say we can be able to have enough water for all the purposes that water is needed for. For the unavailability of water says there's no life. But once water is there, everything is there. Food will be there, energy will be there, just because of water. And that energy will be able to push us to produce water, then maintain the value chain of the food systems. However, we have initiatives that we employ. These initiatives, for us to be able to at least to answer or respond to the challenges, we engage a lot with the communities. We use community participatory approaches to strengthen our governance so that the communities having bought or having owned the initiatives that are brought to them, it enables our nature-based solutions to be mostly accepted for adaptation and for more production. Why? Because I said we are scientifically using scientific or artificial fertilizers, but the soils, due to the nature of the impacts of the climate change, have lost the structure because of the geographical landscape. And that says we have to go back to the indigenous knowledge, the indigenous skills that were talked about, that we have to revert and then re-event the wheel so that we can be at least where we can say sustainably we can move forward. It is in this case where we are saying with the interventions we are trying together with the partners who will always take governments across board. We have key interventions that we employ. We give access to early warning systems to our communities. We give anticipatory action, which helps them to respond to shocks. We are also establishing some alliances to develop the climate risk insurances for the same farmers. We are engaging in soil restoration programs, which are solely the mandate of the Ministry of Environment and Forestry in Lesotho, to protect, to conserve, and regenerate, so that once the landscapes are regenerated, it says the livelihoods will be improved. So we engage in rainwater harvesting. We harvest water from the mountains, from the rivers, even from the roof. We use roof water harvesting techniques, so that at the household, at least there could be something for production at the households. That says we want to promote household nutrition and food sufficiency.
Please, can you round up? Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
We also have some projects. Under these projects, we are building coalitions within the communities to sustainably own the programs that are being implemented in the communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The last part really made me to be hopeful. The very first part, you talked about all the challenges, and I said, oh, so where are we going with Lesotho? But I'm happy that you have deployed community approaches to actually ensure sustainability of any of the initiatives that you have deployed. And of course, we can see the difference between Lesotho and Brazil. You know, Brazil with the success with the Amazon and all the things you are doing, and with the need here and with the calling for a coalition and support, South-South cooperation, or whatever form it can come to, it can be that we can support Lesotho and similar countries. And I think Lesotho was part of the phase 1 of the water tracker, and I think they should be able to benefit from the second phase of the water tracker. So thank you very much for that intervention. I have to quickly go to Asia to get perspective from Mr. Mohammed from Pakistan on what is your reflection. What are the actions? What do you think about the metrics, about the indicators? What are some of the things you're already doing or can still do to respond to the connection between water, food, and climate change? Thank you.
Thank you. I'll again come to this later on, but building on the previous sessions inputs, and I appreciate the colleagues who highlighted challenges. But you know, as they say that to know my challenges and my problems, you need to be in my shoes to understand actually. Pakistan has the responsibility to feed over 240 million people. And it is, besides that, it is one of the low GHG emissions contributor country with less than 1%. But we were continuously being impacted negative impacts of the floods and other hydrometeorological disasters. You just imagine if you have 1/3 of your country underwater at some point in time with $30 billion in losses, and those farmers, they are still making up for that loss, which is 2 years down the line. So Pakistan, despite being non-contributor to the GHG emissions, we, since are a large country and vulnerable to the climate change impacts, we still have acted responsibly, and we have already reduced 8.7% of emissions from 2018-19. And we, as part of our NDCs, we are committed to reduce further these emissions by 50% by 2050, and out of which 15% are, unconditional and 35% are conditional. So we are trying. Thank you. So we are trying our best to make ourselves resilient, particularly with food and water connection is very much important for the livelihood, as over 60% of our population is employed in agriculture, and we are primarily an agriculture country. Our GDP is dependent on that. We have the challenges also include that we have over 70 million acre feet capacity of water, but our storages capacity is only 13 billion acre feet. So it's also related with the resources that you have, and we end up losing over 7 million acre feet of water into the ocean or sea. And we simply have a problem of too much water at a wrong time, at a wrong place, or too little water whenever it is required, wherever it is required. So it's a large country. At some point in time, we will be having floods, while the other areas we will have droughts. And we are continuously being impacted by the monsoonal shift from northeast to northwest. So we are cognizant to these challenges, and as part of our NDCs, we are trying to introduce smart agriculture practices. We are trying to revamp our irrigation system by introducing new agricultural and irrigation practices like drip irrigation or sprinklers. We are also trying to line up our irrigation channels so that we can conserve that water. Unfortunately, since we have a large population and it contributes to our GDP, we are dependent on water based, which consume more water, such crops like sugar cane and wheat and rice. So keeping in view these challenges, we have as part of nationally determined contributions, we are trying to, and then we are also vulnerable to floods and droughts. So we are trying to have more dams and infrastructure, and also make our other infrastructure resilient, and have more disaster risk reduction included into our development practices. We have more investment going into early warning systems. Now, coming to the indexes and matrices, we believe that the agriculture productivity could be one, the per acre yield, the water, then diversification of crops from these traditional crops could be one of the indicator. Also, usage of less GHG emissions from agriculture, ensuring such GHG emissions from agriculture. We also can have an indicator of using less pesticides to our agricultural practices. We can also introduce more innovative technologies to increase our yield and have agricultural practices that ensure food security and food availability to our masses. Then coming to the water usage practices, the inflow and outflow measurement systems, the payment systems or charging of water resource utilization, recharging of groundwater aquifers, that can be an important contributory to. Then also usage of water not only in agriculture but also in industry and domestic uses. You can have such indicators to further make your food and water systems more resilient. But then I'll come to the climate justice part of it at the end. There are these frameworks, the NDCs, the adaptation plans. But what about the damage and loss fund? How are we expecting in COP30? Even in this COP, what are we doing about that? We have already informed you that our farmers and our population, they still, it's very hard for them to make up for the losses that they incurred, and even as a country that what we incurred. So these, I think the countries that have less responsibility to add to the problem of climate change should be duly benefited, and the technologies should be made available, and they should be helped to come out of to be able to be more resilient and more and better prepared to fight this phenomena, and be able to ensure water and agricultural resilience both go hand in glove with each other, and most importantly, the governance systems should be helped, strengthened, capacity building should be ensured for countries like developing countries and those which are more vulnerable to climate change phenomena. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. It's evident that in spite of the challenges that you face, you have been making some progress to have achieved about 8.7% reduction in emission, from just about 5 years. That's something good. I know last week you had the Pakistan Water Week, and we're privileged to be part of that from the International Water Management Institute, which also provides a platform for learning, for exchange. And I think you are moving in the right direction, I would say. Before I call Chuchi to come around up, I want to give opportunity to the audience if you have one or two questions or comments. Yes, one before I call you. Anyone else? Okay, only one person. Yes, please.
Thank you so much. This is Kamal Ahmad from NDMA Pakistan, and I have a question for Madame. Excuse my pronunciation, Madame Chingwana from Lesotho. You talked about climate risk insurance, and I just quickly want to understand, are these the schemes administered by Lesotho itself, or are you referring to the African risk capacity?
Okay. You can take that, please.
Okay, thank you so much. We are working together with the financial institutions in Lesotho. Thank you. No.
That is different from the African risk capacity, but it may be connected somehow. Okay, so I want to let's clap for the panel. Thank you very much for your contribution. Please, you can sit down. You can go to your seat. Thanks a lot. I will now call on our colleagues to come and give a kind of synthesis of actions and next steps. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm Shuchi Vora, and I'm Head of Learning at the Global Resilience Partnership. Thank you so much for the amazing discussions, and thank you, Olufunke, for moderating it so brilliantly. I am a part of the Global Resilience Partnership, and GRP, as the steering committee member of the Water Resilient Food Systems Alliance, is extremely grateful to all the partners who've been part of this journey for the last 2+ years now, I think, and we've been working at it from getting it launched, having a ministerial dialogue last year at COP28, to now getting to a point where we are actually talking about the meat of what we're going to do, and hopefully we continue this collaboration into Brazil at Belém next year. I'm also grateful to UNFCCC CRFS Alliance for hosting us. The Water Resilient Food Systems Partnership is hosted by the UNFCCC CRFS Alliance. Very grateful to them. And finally, I would be remiss not to mention the key role that the COP28 presidency played in ensuring that the water agenda was launched. And this Water Resilient Food Systems Partnership was part of a key pillar of that water agenda. So very grateful to them as well. As a roundup, we have a lovely harvesting done by an artist that's up on the screen. But I'd also quickly like to bring up the attributes that we were hearing from the panelists. Debbie pointed out on the systems preparedness. Natalia also pointed to that. We'd be sleepwalking into crisis if we don't prepare our systems. That's critical. Secondly, we had colleagues from Pakistan, Brazil, and also David from FAO point out the need for equity and inclusivity. We also had Sheila and Natalia point out the need for long-term planning, the continual innovation, knowledge, and enabling of learning and dissemination through technology. Lesotho pointed out a very key factor. Madam Secretary, you pointed out a very key factor, which was polycentric governance. Thank you so much for that. And Marcia, Sheila, and Debbie again pointed out the need for systems thinking. I would probably add one more key point to this as a key attribute for water resilient food systems, which is the redundancy and diversity that's needed in the system. We need diverse opinions. We need diversity of solutions, we need diversity of approaches. And we often get stuck in our way is the right way, but that's not the case, and which is what we wanted to illustrate here through these two panels. So it's great to have this sense of diversity, and the other aspect is the redundancy that we build in the system, which is in many ways, if we don't have one solution that works, then we go to another one, and we have fallback options, which is very important for the complexities and uncertainties that we deal with climate change. Finally, I'd just like to thank you all for being here. Water is the key lifeblood of all our biosphere. It's the key source for the food we eat, and therefore we are all here to discuss the Water Resilient Food Systems Partnership, and hoping that we move on to the next steps, roll our sleeves, and start talking about what are those indicators, resolving those indicators and metrics in the not just the Sharm el-Sheikh adaptation agenda, but the global goal on adaptation, discuss the NAPs, the NDCs, and think of how the NCQGs will contribute to water resilient food systems as well. But finally, what we critically need is mindset shifts. The intentionality that Sheila talked about in the beginning requires the kind of mindset shifts that we need to really think about decolonizing our food systems, our water systems, and how we progress towards them. Thank you. Can we invite the panelists who are still here for a group picture, please?